Welcome to Office Hours. I'm Steve Drost. Along with me, as always, is Will Kaplan. Of course, we are both from the Quivr CRM team. Now, what is Quivr? We are the CRM built by financial advisors for financial advisors, where our objective is simple. How can we help you run your business at peak efficiency? Now, each episode, we tackle a couple of cool items that came directly from our Quivr users who are trying to make their life just a little bit easier. Will, I have a good one today.
I love it.
I do. It was pretty neat. So, you know me, I'm a sensitive person. My ego is pretty big, right? Everybody knows that, and my wife included. But I was in a breakout room with one of our very early users. They are amazing. They're great. I love our users. This one's got a special place in our hearts. But she was using our future financial planning topics module, which to give some non-users or maybe less, some users that might not use that feature. In short, what it was meant to do in design was allow you to track things you needed to talk about in the future, but in specific time periods. So for example, short term. What are you going to do with this client in the short term or every single year? We're always going to look at their tax return. We're always going to look at their W-2 income or investments, things like that. That intermediary term, maybe that's, what do you do every 3 years, every 5 years, that kind of thing. And then long term, right? You're 40 years old. We'll talk about Social Security, in 20 plus years from now, which again, that's how it was intended to be built, because a lot of the things in Quivr are designed based upon how I think and then how some of our earlier users think. And this specific person didn't think like that, which was cool. Like, we're in the office hours and we went to a breakout room. And she goes, look, like, I totally get how you're thinking about this, but that's not how I think. What I would love to have happen, and instead of like this list and this timeline, I just want to be able to create something that says, we're going to look at them moving in 5 years because they want to move closer to their kids. And I was like, that doesn't, we got the square peg in the round hole right now, Will.
Yeah, it's sort of that, like, I mean, the place that my mind immediately goes, I was an e-money user. And so that's like, for me, that's decision center. You're like trying to track all of the little toggle switches and figure out, okay, we've got these assumptions. This is what I want to build into e-money, but I also want to have I kind of want to have that backup in Salesforce as well, in Quivr, to know like where these came from and maybe put some notes around them as well. Yeah, I get that too. That makes sense.
Immediately when she said that, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I get it too. And thank you for identifying a weakness in our software, right? Like, we can't, out of the box, Quivr can't do that. But all I did, and I do think I've gotten good at this. All I did was ask her, like, what do you want it to look like? Like, what are you trying to accomplish? How are you trying to use this in your own business? And she goes, all I want to do is just enter that we're going to talk about something in the future. I want to know the date. I want to be able to have a spot to write notes on it. Like, oh, well, that's not hard. I'm like, well, hold on. Like, it was in office hours, right? We got time for this stuff. I'm like, let me just do something in your system right now. She shared her screen, and let me just do something. And if this is directionally where you're going, great. We'll take this to the goal line and we'll get to where you want. And if I'm totally off base here, we'll just delete it and it'll be like I never did anything. So what we did was we created I'm going to get a little technical here, but we created what's called a new record type, which is basically what I had, but she has her own now, and she still has what Quivr has. So she's not losing functionality. She's enhancing, she's adding on top. We created a new record type. She told me what fields she wanted. We built all the fields. She told me how she wanted the layout to be. And at the end, we made a test little item, right? Move in 5 years to live closer to the kids, hit save. And she goes, that's perfect. And guess how long this entire conversation took, Will?
I mean, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, probably, something like that.
Well, sure, the whole thing did, because I haven't talked to her in a while, because our new users don't come to office hours a lot. But this specific thing took like 4.5 minutes.
Oh,
and
that's
she
great.
had her outcome, and we were done. And then we were on to the next thing. And what's pretty cool is she now like knows, okay, so if there's a Quivr feature that doesn't specifically, perfectly match my way of doing business, like, I can just come to office hours, pitch Steve and Will what I'm trying to accomplish, and more likely than not, we know how to get you to where you're trying to go. Now, how we get you to where you're going might have some nuance or be a little different than how you might have anticipated you get there. But the beautiful thing about Salesforce is, like, we can't just tell you no. If I would have said Rachel, like, that's impossible, like, you can't do that. Good thing I only said her first name, and it's a very common name. If you can't do that, you just can't do that. She could have gone to Google, YouTube, tried to figure it out, hired a developer, and she would have still been able to get that outcome. Like, when you're on Quivr, we can't tell you no. Like, if there's something you want to do and Salesforce is technologically capable of accomplishing it, you can do it, which is really cool. And you can do it quite simply usually.
Well, and what's so funny about this is like you and I had a very similar experience as we were getting into Salesforce, and the reasons that we chose Salesforce is because we were looking for these types of tools in our practice. We'd used other CRMs. We'd gotten to the point where we're like, okay, I want this, like just this little tweak. I want it to be a little bit different. And you hit that roadblock of like, well, you can't, there's no way to create a custom object in that CRM. That's really, I mean, that's why I think both of us ended up in Salesforce. And now we have this other user who's now saying like, well, just, I want it to work a little bit differently. And that's the beauty of this system. And I think that's also where you'll see kind of the progression of users over time with Quiver is, I see a lot of people come in, they use it the same way for a while, and then they start adapting it and they start making it their own. And I think one of the things that, we've talked about many times with demos and things is, we're going to get you close to what you really want, to perfection. Everybody, you say this all the time, everybody's a little bit different. And so you're going to want some of those customizations. And so like, as you sort of grow your skill set inside of Quiver, I think this is a really normal, natural progression where it's like, okay, I've got this, like I've got kind of a framework, but I need to tailor it a little bit more to what I'm trying to accomplish. And once you get that skill set, then you're on that plateau and you can just sort of say like, oh, I'm going to tinker with this one and I'm going to tinker with that one. And it's all the same process. It's just, you're doing the same thing. You're creating a couple of fields, maybe you throw another record type in there, you lay out a page. And like all of a sudden, you have the keys to the kingdom. It's a neat progression to see with users.
And as we've grown, right, as our user base has grown, we're able to start identifying patterns. We do know, we know what it takes to succeed on this platform. And usually we see people at office hours regularly, right? We want to see you a lot in the first couple of months. Make sure you get your bearings straight. You start learning the why, the basics of the system. But then we don't see you for a while. The fourth month, we're not going to see you at office hours every week. The third month, we're probably not going to see you at office hours every week. But then we know that when you come back 6 months later, 12 months later, you are going to have something that might not, you're not going to have a ton of little questions. You're going to have like one bigger item. And in this person's case, right, that bigger item was, how can I repurpose this thing that you have in your system to match the way that my business functions? So we don't see you as much, but when you do, one, it's great to see people again because we get to know people when they onboard. But then, right, we know that when you do come back, you're to a point where you've understood that the system can accomplish what you need. You just don't know how. And then that's what we're here for. But no, I enjoyed that conversation, not only because I got to see one of my favorite users, but because it's always fun solving problems. But that's a wrap. Good stuff today. As always, if you are a Quiver user, remember, join us on Wednesdays for office hours where we can help you with similar items. If you're not a Quiver user, that's okay. Everybody makes mistakes and nobody is perfect. But remember, it's not too late. Come schedule a demo, hang out with me and Will, and let's see what Quiver can do for yourself.